The morning air was heavy, not with rain or humidity, but with something less tangible. The weight of routine. The heaviness of days that blur together into indistinguishable sequences. Wake, work, sleep, repeat. The kind of weight that settles on neighborhoods like this one, where most people stopped asking what if and learned to accept what is. Boxes lined the streets like silent witnesses. Stacked outside businesses waiting to be sorted. Piled on loading docks ready for distribution. Scattered on doorsteps like evidence of commerce, of connection, of an economy that flowed through these streets even when prosperity didn't. Dury moved among them quietly. His uniform marked him as invisible, one of those people who exist in the margins of daily life, noticed only when something goes wrong, otherwise merging seamlessly into the background of everyone else's busy day. But invisibility has advantages. Every signature he collected felt deliberate, not rushed, not mechanical. He made brief eye contact with each person. Noticed things. The way a business owner's hands trembled slightly when signing, stress or illness. The new security camera angled toward the loading area, recent theft or general precaution. The manager who always counted boxes twice, distrust of the system or past experience with shortages. Every delivery carried invisible weight, information accumulating like compound interest, details that meant nothing individually but something collectively. Luri watched from the window of her small apartment, which overlooked one of Dury's regular routes. Not with expectation. She'd learned long ago not to expect anything in particular. Expectations were just premeditated disappointments. But with attention, there's a difference. She saw the way he moved now, purposeful without being hurried, observant without seeming nosy, present in a way most people never managed to be. He wasn't sleepwalking through his days the way so many did, including her sometimes. He was watching, learning, processing. She couldn't articulate why that mattered, but she felt certain that it did. Lynn arrived bragging as usual. He'd gotten a promotion at the municipal office where he worked. Nothing significant, just a title change that came with marginally more responsibility and a salary increase that barely kept pace with inflation. But Lynn had always possessed the remarkable ability to transform modest achievements into heroic triumphs through sheer force of narrative. Do they even know what they have here? He laughed, holding court at the corner where people gathered after work, speaking loud enough to ensure Dury could hear from where he was unloading boxes nearby. Someone with my skills, my connections, my understanding of how systems actually work? I could be running this whole district if I wanted to. The small crowd offered the appropriate murmurs of agreement. Not because they believed him, necessarily, but because agreeing was easier than challenging, and most people preferred easy. Dury didn't answer, didn't even look up. He simply continued working, his movements efficient and unhurried, as if Lynn's proclamations were nothing more than background noise, the urban equivalent of traffic sounds or distant construction. Lynn found this silence infuriating. What was the point of bragging if the one person you most wanted to impress, or more accurately, the one person you most wanted to diminish, refused to acknowledge you existed? The warehouses became familiar to Dury in ways they never became familiar to others who worked there. Most delivery drivers learned the minimum necessary to do their jobs: where to park, which dock to use, who to get signatures from, which routes to take. They moved through these spaces functionally, seeing only what they needed to see. Dury saw more. Steel walls that showed signs of recent reinforcement in some areas but not others. Why? Humming machines that operated on predictable schedules. Who maintained them and when? The repetition of daily operations that created patterns, rhythms, vulnerabilities, opportunities. Repetition sharpens observation for those who remain conscious during it. While others zoned out, Dury paid attention. He learned schedules without trying, knew which managers arrived early, which supervisors left exactly at closing time, which warehouse sections were busiest during which hours. He learned names without effort, not just of people but of systems, the informal naming conventions workers used for equipment, locations, problems that recurred frequently enough to earn nicknames. He learned mistakes, the small inefficiencies that cost time and money, the gaps between policy and practice, the places where what should happen and what actually happened diverged consistently. None of this was intentional at first, or perhaps it was always intentional in ways he didn't consciously acknowledge. He was simply being himself, someone who'd survived by noticing things, by understanding systems from the position of someone moving through them rather than controlling them, by seeing opportunities invisible to those who'd never needed to look for them. Luri noticed the changes in him. Subtle at first, then increasingly obvious to anyone paying attention. His posture had shifted, still relaxed, but with a quality of readiness, like a runner at the starting line trying to appear casual while every muscle is prepared to explode into motion. His calm had acquired a new quality. Not the calm of resignation or acceptance, but the calm of someone with a plan. The kind of calm that comes from knowing something others don't, from seeing connections others have missed. She wanted to ask. Almost did several times. But something stopped her. Some instinct that told her questions might disrupt whatever process was unfolding, might force premature explanations that would cheapen or complicate what he was building. So she simply watched. And waited. And trusted. Lin noticed nothing. That was his fundamental weakness, though he would never recognize it as such. Lin noticed only what confirmed his existing beliefs, saw only evidence that supported his predetermined conclusions about how the world worked and where people belonged within it. Delivery boy, he mocked one afternoon, using the term with deliberate condescension, as if the job itself was evidence of failure, of dreams abandoned, of ambition exposed as delusion. The small crowd around him laughed obligingly. Not cruel laughter, necessarily. Just the easy laughter of people finding humor in the obvious hierarchies that structured their world. Those who give orders and those who take them, those who matter and those who don't. Dury remained invisible to them. Deliberately. He'd learned this trick during his years away, how to be present in a space while attracting no particular attention, how to occupy the background of scenes while absorbing everything happening in the foreground. Invisibility was armor. But it was also access. People say things around those they consider invisible. Reveal things. Drop their guards. The delivery driver becomes like furniture. Necessary, functional, but not really present in any way that requires careful speech or conscious awareness. And Dury listened. Absorbed. Compiled. The weeks accumulated into months. Summer heat gave way to autumn coolness. The rhythms of the neighborhood remained unchanged: work, home, small pleasures, large frustrations, dreams deferred, acceptance learned. But something was shifting beneath the surface. Something most people couldn't see because they weren't looking, because noticing would require caring, and caring was expensive in a place where emotional resources were scarce. One evening, after Dury had finished his route and was sitting with Luri on their usual steps, she asked the question that had been building. Are you planning something? Not accusatory. Just curious. Maybe a little concerned. Dury smiled faintly. That small smile that had become familiar to her. The one that suggested he knew something, understood something, had seen something that amused him in a quiet way. Nothing you need to worry about, he said. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. She studied his face, trying to read meaning in expressions that remained carefully neutral. You're different, she said. Not in obvious ways. But different. Is that bad? I don't know yet. He nodded, accepting this. That's fair. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable despite the unspoken questions hanging between them. I trust you, Luri finally said. I don't know if that's wise. But I do. It's wise, Dury replied. I promise. Another promise. But this one felt different from the first. Less desperate, more certain, weighted with knowledge rather than hope. The deliveries continued through October, into November, approaching the holidays when commerce accelerated and delivery drivers worked longer hours to manage increased volume. Dury maintained his quiet routine. Same routes. Same efficiency. Same careful observation that looked like nothing more than competent work. Lin continued his mockery, though with slightly less enthusiasm as time passed. The joke was wearing thin even for him. How many times can you mock someone for the same thing before the mockery becomes boring? Before you start to wonder if maybe you're the one who's missing something? But pride prevented Lin from asking that question seriously. Pride and fear of the answer. The warehouse managers began to notice Dury in a different way. Not as just another delivery driver, they had dozens of those faces and names that blurred together into a category rather than individuals. But as someone reliable. Someone who anticipated problems before they occurred. Someone who knew the systems well enough to suggest small improvements that actually worked. You ever think about moving up? One manager asked casually. Maybe dispatch? Maybe logistics coordination? Dury smiled politely. Maybe someday. But not yet. Not quite yet. Because what he was building required more time. More observation. More pieces falling into place. And with each delivery, each signature, each seemingly meaningless interaction, Lin moved closer to a truth he wasn't ready to face. The truth that invisibility is sometimes strategic. That silence can be preparation rather than submission. That carrying boxes teaches you things about systems that managing them never does. That the person you dismiss most completely might be the one watching most carefully. That underestimating someone is giving them a weapon, one they might eventually use. The street remained the same. The boxes accumulated. The signatures collected. But beneath the surface of routine, something was taking shape. Something patient. Something deliberate. Something that would eventually emerge in ways that would surprise everyone who thought they knew how this story would end. Dury felt it approaching like a change in weather. That quality of the air before a storm when everything becomes charged with potential, when even people who don't believe in intuition feel something building. She didn't know what Dury was planning. Didn't know if he was planning anything at all, or if she was simply projecting intention onto behavior that was exactly what it appeared to be: honest work, honest living, honest acceptance of circumstances. But deep down, in a place beyond logic or evidence, she knew. Dury wasn't just surviving anymore. He was preparing. For what, she couldn't say. But the certainty was there, solid and undeniable. The morning air remained heavy. The boxes continued lining the streets. Dury moved among them with purpose disguised as routine. And somewhere in the comfortable certainty of his superiority, Lin remained blind to what was coming. Because that's the final privilege of those who've never struggled. They never learn to watch their backs. They never learn that the people they dismiss most casually are sometimes the ones they should fear most. They never learn that underestimation is a debt that eventually comes due. And payment was coming. Slowly. Quietly. Inevitably. If you recognize something of your own journey in Dury's quiet preparation and how invisible work can become unexpected power, feel free to share your story in the comment section.